Your soulmate had something to say about your style, but it was not the criticism you once believed they made behind your back. Yesterday evening, they entered an international fashion exhibition and saw a model wearing the exact coat you designed years ago, the uneven silver stitching, the hidden blue lining, and the small embroidered compass placed beneath the left sleeve where no audience was supposed to notice it. The coat was presented as the lost masterpiece of world-famous designer Helena Voss. Your name appeared nowhere. For years, everyone believed you copied Helena's signature style after working briefly inside her studio. Your soulmate believed it too. They believed your clothes, sketches, and entire creative identity were built from ideas belonging to someone more successful. That accusation ended your career before it truly began, and it destroyed the trust between both of you. But when your soulmate touched the coat's sleeve yesterday, the museum's digital archive opened unexpectedly. Inside was an old video showing you sewing the compass into the original garment while Helena stood behind the camera asking you to explain what it meant. Your voice said, "My grandmother taught me that style is not what people notice first. It is the part you hide inside the clothing so the person wearing it remembers who they are." The video was recorded 2 years before Helena claimed she created the coat. Your soulmate watched it 3 times. Then the museum curator revealed something even more painful. Helena had donated a sealed design archive containing more than 400 sketches. Nearly half carried your handwriting beneath labels where your name had been covered with correction tape. Your soulmate's final comment about your style was not, "You copied her." It was, "Everything the world praised about her began with the person I allowed them to silence." This is not merely a story about fashion. It is about identity, creative ownership, family legacy, and the difference between recognizing a person's appearance and understanding what their style is trying to protect. Your connection to clothing began long before you entered a professional studio. Your grandmother, Amara, lived above a small tailoring shop near the oldest market in the city. The shop had one narrow window, 3 sewing machines, and walls covered with thread in colors that looked brighter than anything outside. Amara did not design for celebrities. She repaired school uniforms, altered wedding dresses, replaced broken zippers, and transformed damaged clothing for families who could not afford something new. She taught you that fabric remembered the hands touching it. A torn sleeve might come from a child climbing a fence. A faded pocket might show where someone kept a photograph. A repaired wedding dress could carry 3 generations inside the same seam. Whenever customers asked her to hide a repair completely, Amara sometimes added one small detail inside the garment, a colored stitch, a tiny symbol, or a short word embroidered where only the person wearing it would know. She called these details anchors. "People think style is about being seen," she told you. "Sometimes style is about remembering yourself when no one is looking." Your anchor was a compass. After your parents separated, you moved between different homes and rarely knew which place was supposed to feel permanent. Amara embroidered a compass inside your school jacket. She said it would not tell you where to go, but it would remind you that being uncertain did not mean being lost. You began placing the compass inside everything you made. Never on the outside. Never as a logo. It belonged to the wearer, not the audience. By the time you were 16, you could transform ordinary clothing into something people remembered. You combined formal shapes with visible repairs. You left certain seams unfinished intentionally. You placed expensive fabric beside material recovered from old uniforms, curtains, work clothes, and family garments. Some people called it strange. Amara called it honest. She said perfect clothing pretended the fabric had no past. Your designs allowed the past to remain visible without controlling what the garment became next. You met your soulmate at a neighborhood art festival. You were displaying 5 handmade jackets from a collection called Where We Return. Each garment contained material donated by someone rebuilding after a major change, a closed business, a lost home, a family separation, or the death of someone they loved. Your soulmate stopped in front of a dark green coat with one sleeve made from an old postal uniform. They asked why the sleeves were different. You said, because the person who donated the fabric spent 30 years delivering letters and then lost the ability to write after a stroke. His daughter wrote the story inside the lining. Your soulmate asked whether they could read it. You said only the person who purchased the coat could decide whether to show anyone. They smiled. You made something public with a private center. You answered, that is what most people are. They bought nothing that day. They returned the following afternoon carrying coffee and asked whether you needed help packing the display. The relationship developed around small observations. Your soulmate noticed that you always examined the inside of garments before the outside. You noticed that they wore the same watch every day even though the strap had been repaired repeatedly. They told you the watch belonged to their father. You offered to replace the damaged strap. They refused. You said, then we repair it without making it look new. That answer made them trust you. Your soulmate worked in cultural communications. They helped museums, galleries, and creative organizations explain their projects to the public. They understood how stories shaped value. A simple object could become priceless when connected to the right history. At first, they loved the stories inside your clothing. They introduced you to artists, photographers, and gallery organizers. They helped you prepare your first professional portfolio. When you became uncomfortable describing yourself as a designer, they said, you are already doing the work. The title is simply late. Your first major opportunity arrived through the Vail Institute of Fashion. Every year, the Institute selected 12 emerging designers for an intensive program led by Helena Voss. Helena was internationally famous. Her clothing appeared on red carpets, magazine covers, and museum walls. Critics described her style as reconstructed elegance. She combined luxury materials with visible mending, unfinished seams, and hidden messages. The similarities to your work were impossible to ignore. But you had developed your style independently. You knew Helena's public collections, yet the compass anchor, recycled family material, and private interior stories came directly from Amara. When you applied, you worried judges might think your work imitated Helena. Your soulmate said, similarity does not erase origin. Show them where yours came from. You included photographs of Amara's shop, childhood garments carrying compass stitches, and early sketches dated years before you studied professional fashion. Helena personally selected you. During the first meeting, she examined your portfolio silently. She spent several minutes studying a jacket repaired with silver thread. Then she turned it inside out and found the compass. Her expression changed. She asked what it meant. You told her about Amara. Helena said, never place the story inside an application again. People will reduce your work to sentiment. You asked whether the story weakened the design. She answered, no. It makes the design valuable enough for someone else to steal. You thought she was warning you. You did not understand that she was describing herself. The program lasted 9 months. Each participant received studio space, technical support, material access, and the chance to present a collection during Meridian Fashion Week. Helena visited the studio twice each week and reviewed every decision. She was demanding. She criticized obvious ideas, unnecessary decoration, and anything that appeared designed only to attract photographs. She told participants that style required consistency. You should be recognizable before anyone reads the label, she said. You respected her skill. You also noticed how carefully she studied your construction process. She asked to see Amara's old pattern books. You refused politely because several contained measurements and private notes about former customers. Helena said preservation experts could protect them. You said they were already protected with you. She began requesting digital copies of your early sketches for the Institute archive. The program agreement required participants to submit process documentation, so you uploaded selected pages. You did not upload everything. Amara had died shortly before the program began. The original pattern books were among the few objects that still made the tailoring shop feel alive. Your soulmate understood. They helped you move the books into archival boxes and photograph only what the program required. The collection you developed was called The Inner Direction. It contained 12 garments based upon people who had rebuilt their lives after losing the place they once called home. The centerpiece was the silver and blue coat. Its outer fabric came from an used formal wool found inside Amara's shop. The blue lining came from curtains that hung above the tailoring window throughout your childhood. The silver stitching followed repairs Amara had made inside your final school jacket. Beneath the left sleeve, you embroidered the compass. The coat was not yet complete when Helena saw it. She said it was the strongest garment in the program. Then she suggested removing the blue lining. She said the color made the work look too personal and less internationally sophisticated. You disagreed. Helena said, you must decide whether you want to preserve a memory or build a career. You answered, I am building the career from the memory. She smiled, but the warmth had disappeared. A week later, your access to the Institute's main studio was suspended. The program manager said another participant accused you of using fabric reserved for a sponsored project. You showed receipts proving the wool belonged to Amara. The manager apologized and restored access. Then several sketches vanished from your work table. Security footage for that evening was unavailable because the cameras were undergoing maintenance. You began carrying every important page home. Your soulmate noticed the change. You stopped sleeping properly. You photographed every garment before leaving the studio. You became suspicious when assistants touched your work. They asked whether Helena was creating pressure. You said the program was competitive. Your soulmate replied, "Competition does not explain missing pages." You told them not to interfere. Helena controlled the final show, and any public complaint could remove you before the collection appeared. Your soulmate respected the request initially. Then Helena invited them to lunch. She said she wanted to discuss how media attention might affect your relationship. She praised your talent but expressed concern about your emotional attachment to Amara's work. Helena said, "They have not decided whether they are preserving their grandmother's style or developing their own." Your soulmate defended you. They said the family history was part of the design language, not evidence that you lacked independence. Helena leaned closer. She said, "Then you should encourage them to stop presenting my methods as inherited tradition." Your soulmate asked what she meant. Helena showed them a file containing side-by-side images. On one side were garments from her private archive supposedly created years earlier. On the other were your program designs. Both contained visible silver stitching, mismatched sleeves, blue interior fabric, and hidden directional symbols. The dates on Helena's archive came first. Your soulmate felt physically cold. They asked whether you had seen those designs before entering the program. Helena said several appeared during private lectures and archive visits. She claimed you could have accessed them through professional contacts. Your soulmate said your childhood garments contained similar details. Helena asked whether any independent person could verify when the photographs were taken. Amara was gone. The tailoring shop had closed. Many original customers could not be found. Helena said she did not want to accuse you publicly. She believed creative influence could happen unconsciously. Young designers sometimes absorbed a mentor's language and later believed it belonged to them. She said, "They may genuinely think the style is theirs." The statement sounded compassionate. It was an accusation designed to survive every denial. Your soulmate did not tell you about the meeting immediately. That silence gave Helena time. 3 days before the final show, an anonymous fashion account published comparisons between your collection and Helena's private archive. The post called you the program's most confident copy. Images spread rapidly. People said you reproduced Helena's hidden seam technique, color combinations, and repair symbolism. Critics asked why an emerging designer had been allowed to present work so similar to the mentor leading the program. The Institute announced a review. Your collection was removed from the final schedule. You asked to see Helena's original garments. The Institute refused because they belonged to a private archive. You requested unedited creation dates. The digital records showed dates several years earlier than yours. You knew something was wrong. The blue lining came from Amara's curtains. The silver seam came from your school jacket. The compass existed inside clothing you wore as a child. You showed photographs. The institute said images could be altered or dated incorrectly. Helena issued a statement. I recognize the pain of a young artist discovering that personal memory does not always equal creative ownership. She never called you a thief. She did not need to. Your soulmate came to your apartment carrying the comparison file. They asked whether you had ever entered Helena's archive privately. You said no. They asked whether you had seen unpublished work during the program. You said Helena occasionally displayed samples, but none matched your collection. They asked whether Amara could have been influenced by Helena's early career. You stared at them. Amara had used silver repair stitching before Helena finished design school. You opened the pattern boxes and showed dated notes. Several pages were missing. The pages documenting the earliest compass garments were gone. You remembered Helena's repeated request to view the books. Your soulmate asked whether you believed she took them. You said you did not know. Then they asked, could your style have become mixed with hers without you realizing? That question ended the conversation before either person recognized it as an ending. You asked, do you believe I copied her? Your soulmate said, I believe the similarities need an explanation. You replied, my life is the explanation. They said the world would require something verifiable. You answered, I did not ask what the world believes. I asked what you believe. Your soulmate remained silent. You told them to leave. The institute completed its review within 48 hours. It said no definitive intentional copying could be proven but removed you from the program because the collection lacked sufficient originality. That language destroyed you professionally. You were not formally accused of theft. You were labeled unoriginal. Fashion publications repeated the decision. Potential buyers canceled orders. A small manufacturer ended negotiations. Galleries returned your portfolio without comment. Your soulmate attempted to contact you. You did not answer. They sent a message saying, I am not your enemy. I only needed to understand where the overlap came from. You replied once, you needed evidence before offering trust. I needed trust while searching for evidence. Then you stopped responding. Helena invited your soulmate to another meeting. She said you were reacting emotionally because the program exposed a painful truth. She suggested giving you space. Your soulmate believed distance would reduce the conflict. Instead, distance allowed Helena's version to become permanent. You returned to Amara's old neighborhood and searched for former customers. The tailoring shop had been rented to someone else. Storage boxes had been moved during the building sale. Some records were damaged by moisture. You found several garments with compass anchors. Most owners could not prove exactly when the stitching had been added. The designs looked old, but Helena's lawyers said old fabric did not prove old embroidery. You contacted a professional archivist. The archivist examined Amara's remaining books and found that multiple pages had been removed cleanly using a blade. The cuts appeared recent. You filed a complaint with the Institute. It said too many people had access to your work area to identify anyone. You asked for the complete security records. The Institute said footage was deleted after 90 days. You had waited 94. The evidence appeared to disappear exactly before you reached it. You stopped designing publicly. You found work repairing costumes for a regional theater under a shortened version of your name. The job paid little, but no one asked about originality when a sleeve needed rebuilding before the next performance. You continued placing compass anchors inside certain garments. Not all. Only the ones worn by performers who appeared frightened before entering the stage. You never explained the symbol. Your soulmate followed your life from a distance, but information was limited. Mutual friends said you had moved away. One person said you abandoned fashion completely. Helena's career expanded. The year after your removal, she released a collection called Private North. It contained visible repairs, hidden blue linings, directional symbols, and mismatched historic fabrics. Critics called it her most personal work. The silver and blue coat appeared in the closing position. Your soulmate attended the show. They recognized it immediately. They knew the coat belonged to your program collection, but Helena had changed enough details to make legal proof difficult. The outer shape was sharper. The sleeves were longer. The compass had been replaced publicly with a star. When your soulmate asked Helena about the similarity, she said the coat had existed in her archive for years and influenced the exercises she gave participants. She showed another dated sketch. Again, the date came before yours. Your soulmate accepted the document. But doubt remained. Why had you defended the blue lining so intensely if it came from Helena? Why did photographs from childhood show compass stitches? Why were pages removed from Amara's books? Why did Helena's supposedly older sketches contain modern paper that had not been sold at the stated date? Your soulmate began studying details. Their work in cultural communications taught them that provenance mattered, where an object came from, who handled it, and how its history was documented. They requested access to Helena's archive under the excuse of preparing a retrospective exhibition. Helena agreed. She trusted your soulmate because they had once questioned you. The archive contained thousands of sketches, photographs, fabric samples, and journals. Many were professionally catalogued. A smaller section had been added recently but labeled as early work. Your soulmate noticed inconsistent storage. Supposedly old sketches were placed inside new protective sleeves. Several pages carried faded ink but fresh adhesive. Fabric samples described as decades old showed color treatments developed much later. They asked the archive manager. The manager said Helena personally prepared those boxes and instructed staff not to question dates. Your soulmate began documenting quietly. They found a photograph of Helena inside the Vail Institute studio standing beside your unfinished silver and blue coat. The metadata placed it during your program year. The Institute's public archive displayed the same image with the coat cropped out. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Inside a catalog box labeled North Symbols, Early Research, your soulmate found one of Amara's missing pattern pages. They recognized your handwriting in the corner. You had written, "Left sleeve anchor, keep private." Someone had placed a white archival label over your note. The page was dated 8 years earlier than the actual paper manufacturer. Your soulmate removed nothing. They photographed the page and contacted an independent museum ethics attorney. The attorney advised them to secure the exhibition archive through a formal preservation request. Helena was preparing to donate the collection to the Metropolitan Institute of Design, where it would receive permanent cultural status. Once the donation was accepted, false dates could become part of official history. Your soulmate filed a confidential concern. The museum agreed to conduct independent testing. Paper analysis, ink dating, image metadata, and storage records revealed systematic alteration. More than 400 items inside Helena's early archive had been created or modified after your program. Some sketches used paper purchased through the Vail Institute during the year you attended. Several contain tracing marks matching photographs of your original work. Fabric fibers from the silver and blue coat matched material documented inside Amara's tailoring shop. The coat was yours. But the museum still needed evidence explaining how Helena obtained it. The former Vail Institute archive manager provided the answer. After your removal, Helena ordered staff to place your entire collection inside a confidential dispute archive. Program rules said participant work involved in originality reviews could be retained temporarily. The garments were never returned. Helena later instructed an assistant to transfer them into her private studio, claiming they served as evidence. Several pieces were altered. Labels were removed. The compass anchors were hidden, replaced, or described as later additions. Helena did not merely imitate your style. She took completed work. The archive manager had remained silent because Helena controlled careers, references, and funding throughout the industry. He finally agreed to testify after learning the collection was being donated publicly. Your soulmate asked the museum to contact you before releasing any findings. The museum could not locate you. Your old professional email no longer existed. The address connected to the program had been deactivated. You were working under another name. Your soulmate knew where Amara's old shop had been, but not where you lived. They visited the neighborhood. The new shop owner remembered you occasionally collecting mail. She gave your soulmate the contact information of a theater wardrobe manager. That manager refused to share your private details. She said, "They came here after an entire industry decided the famous person's paperwork mattered more than their life." Your soulmate did not defend themselves. They left a sealed letter and asked the manager to deliver it only if you wished to receive it. Then the museum announced Helena's retrospective. Your soulmate believed the exhibition would be delayed until provenance questions were resolved. Helena's legal team pressured the museum to proceed, saying unproven allegations should not destroy decades of work. The museum opened a restricted preview yesterday. Your soulmate attended. The silver and blue coat stood at the center beneath Helena's name. Seeing it created a pain stronger than reading any report. This was the garment you defended while they asked whether your style had become mixed with Helena's. This was the work removed before your first professional show. This was the evidence of a career that could have existed. Your soulmate approached the display. A digital sensor recognized the exhibition credentials on their phone and opened the internal research archive. The museum had recently uploaded files for reviewers. The first video began automatically. You appeared on screen inside the Vail Institute studio. Your hair was tied back. Silver thread hung across your shoulder. The coat was unfinished. Helena's voice came from behind the camera. Explain the hidden symbol. You lifted the left sleeve and showed the compass. You said, "My grandmother placed one inside my jacket when I was a child. She said style is not always what people notice. Sometimes it is what the person wearing the garment needs to remember." Helena asked, "And what should they remember?" You answered, "That uncertainty does not mean they are lost." The video date came 2 years before Helena's earliest claim of creating the coat. Your soulmate stood before the display and began crying. Not because the video alone proved your authorship. Because your voice sounded exactly as it had before the accusation changed you, confident, careful, and completely certain about where the style came from. They remembered asking whether your memory was reliable. The video proved you were not confused. The archive showed another recording. Helena was speaking privately with the institute manager after reviewing your collection. She said, "They have the visual language I have been trying to find for years, but they are too emotionally attached to control it professionally." The manager asked whether she intended to collaborate with you. Helena replied, "They will either learn to separate the work from the grandmother story, or the industry will separate it for them." Your soulmate closed the screen. They had heard enough. The museum director arrived and explained that the exhibition would close immediately. Helena's authorship claims were under formal investigation. Every object connected to you would be secured and removed from public display until you could be contacted. Your soulmate said, "Do not remove their name from another room while trying to correct the first one." The museum added an interim notice, "Authorship disputed." Evidence indicates that this garment was created by an unnamed participant whose identity is being restored. Your soulmate refused to let the museum call you unnamed for long. They released a personal statement with your full professional name. They said they had witnessed your development before the institute, saw your childhood evidence, and failed to defend you when Helena's archive appeared more official. They did not present themselves as the person exposing the theft. They admitted they helped the theft succeed emotionally. Their statement said, "I believed institutional dates before asking how those dates were created. I treated a famous designer's confidence as authority and the original artist's distress as unreliability." Helena's attorneys threatened legal action. Your soulmate did not withdraw the statement. The museum's tests supported it. The former archive manager supported it. The recording supported it. Amara's pattern page supported it. Then the theater wardrobe manager finally gave you the letter. You opened it alone after a performance. Your soulmate began, "I saw your coat yesterday." They did not say, "Helena's coat." They wrote, "I finally understood that your style was not something you borrowed from her. It was the language she tried to take because she could not create the history inside it." They explain the archive, videos, altered dates, and museum investigation. Then they take responsibility. They say, "I asked whether your memory had become mixed with hers. I should have asked why every system presenting her as the original was controlled by people who benefited from her authority." They admit they were frightened. Your career was beginning to become serious. The relationship was changing. Helena suggested success might separate both of you, and part of your soulmate feared you would enter a creative world where they no longer belonged. When the accusation appeared, it gave that fear an explanation. Perhaps you had changed. Perhaps the ambition was not authentic. Perhaps they had loved a version of you built from someone else's work. They write, "I allowed the accusation to protect me from a different fear, that your talent was real and I might have to learn how to love you without making your growth about whether I felt secure." This honesty matters. Helena manipulated evidence. The Institute protected reputation. The archive was altered. But your soulmate's insecurity helped the false story enter. They say, "I did not doubt you only because the documents looked convincing. I doubted you because believing you required me to stand against a person powerful enough to affect both our futures." Your soulmate explains what will happen next. The museum will return every garment, sketch, pattern, and process file identified as yours. Independent conservators will separate Helena's alterations from your original construction without removing evidence of what occurred. The silver and blue coat will not be exhibited again until you decide what should happen. You may reclaim it. You may allow it to appear under your name. You may dismantle it and reuse the material. You may leave it inside secure storage. The choice is yours. The Veil Institute has opened a review of every participant who may have lost work, authorship, or opportunities through Helena's program. Your soulmate is asking the Institute to fund independent legal representation for those designers. They are not asking you to join a public campaign. You have already spent years carrying a fight powerful organizations should have investigated themselves. Your professional record will be corrected. The finding that your work lacked originality will be withdrawn. Publications that repeated the accusation will receive the museum's report. Your soulmate has also contacted former buyers and manufacturers who abandoned negotiations. But they write, "I know reopening doors does not return the years you would have spent walking through them. Correcting a reputation is necessary. It is not the same as restoring a career. You developed another life inside the theater. You may not want to return to the fashion industry that failed you. You may want your work recognized without entering public design again. Your soulmate will not call that fear or wasted talent. The decision belongs to you." Then the letter returns to something more personal. They describe the clothes they still own from your relationship. A jacket carrying a repaired inner pocket. A formal shirt with a blue thread beneath the collar. The watch strap you repaired without making it look new. After visiting the museum, your soulmate examined every garment. Inside the watch strap, beneath a fold they had never opened, was a tiny compass. You placed it there during the first months of the relationship. They had worn it every day without knowing. Your soulmate writes, "I spent years believing I understood your style because I recognized the visible details. I never understood that the most important part was always placed where applause could not reach it. Your style was not the silver thread. It was not the uneven sleeve. It was not the recycled fabric, blue lining, or exposed repair. Your style was the principle beneath those choices. Nothing damaged needed to pretend it had never been broken. Nothing private needed to become public before it could possess value. A person could carry their past without allowing that past to determine their direction." Helena copied the appearance. She could not copy the meaning. That is why her versions became increasingly decorative. Critics praised the visible repairs, but the garments carried no real person's history. The anchors became logos. Private symbols became branding. She reproduced the surface. You created the language. Your soulmate's final comment about your style is, "I thought your clothes were asking people to notice how different you were. Now I understand they were giving people permission to remain themselves." The letter does not ask you to return. It asks whether you will permit one direct conversation after reviewing the evidence independently. You may bring an attorney, museum representative, or trusted friend. You may respond in writing. You may refuse. Your soulmate will still correct the public record. They say, "Your authorship is not a gift I can return only if you forgive me." They also refuse to romanticize your silence after the accusation. They understand why you left, but they want both people to admit that some communication might have changed the outcome. You stopped answering after one message. Your soulmate accepted the silence because it allowed them to avoid confronting the harm they caused. Both of you allowed the relationship to end without one complete conversation. The difference is that you had already been forced to prove your identity inside every professional room. You were not required to enter another emotional trial at home. Your soulmate acknowledges that. They write, "I told myself you could have explained more." The truth is that you had already explained your style, your history, and your evidence repeatedly. I was asking you to keep proving yourself until believing you became comfortable for me. No person should have to perform their innocence forever. You may read the letter and feel relief. The code is yours. The archive was altered. The missing pattern pages were taken. The Institute's decision was based upon false evidence. You were not imagining the similarities. Helena was using your work. Relief may become anger. Your soulmate saw the childhood garments. They helped photograph Amara's patterns. They understood why the blue lining mattered. Yet the moment an institution produced earlier dates, they questioned your memory. You are allowed to feel both. You may reclaim your work without reclaiming the relationship. You may accept public correction and maintain private distance. You may agree to one conversation and promise nothing afterward. You may discover that the person you became during the years of silence does not fit inside the future both of you once imagined. The truth does not create a debt. If you speak with your soulmate, ask why professional authority became more convincing than personal knowledge. Ask why Helena's suggestion that your success would create distance affected their judgment. Ask why they accepted an archive they could not inspect fully. Ask whether they understand how creative theft differs from influence. Ask whether they will stand beside the truth if Helena's supporters attack your character again. Ask whether they can celebrate your work without treating your career as a threat to their importance. A mature answer will not be, "Helena fooled everyone." It will be, "She created the false evidence, and I accepted it because it allowed me to avoid the courage required to believe you when believing you carried professional and personal risk." Observe what happens after the museum statement stops dominating the news. Will your soulmate continue helping other participants? Will they respect your decision about the coat? Will they protect Amara's private customer notes from becoming exhibition material? Will they refuse interviews that turn your pain into a dramatic romance? Will they correct your name in rooms where they once remained silent? Will they accept your answer without describing themselves as another victim of Helena? Consistency will reveal whether the discovery created real change. Your soulmate ends the letter by describing yesterday's final moment inside the museum. Before staff removed the silver and blue coat, the conservator opened the left sleeve carefully. Helena's team had sewn a decorative star above the original compass. The later stitching could be removed. The compass remained beneath it. Your anchor survived. Your soulmate writes, "She covered it. She renamed it. She placed her history over yours. But she never removed the original direction." Then they say, "That is what I finally understand about you. The industry changed your name, your career, and the story told about your work. It did not change where the work came from." Finally, I once asked whether your style belonged to someone else. Yesterday, I learned the truth. Other people were wearing your style while you were carrying the cost of creating it. That is what your soulmate had to say about your style. Not that it was too unusual. Not that it needed to become more elegant. Not that you copied someone famous. They finally understand that your style carried your grandmother's hands, your childhood uncertainty, your visible repairs, and your belief that people deserved private reminders of who they were. They understand why you placed the compass inside the garment. Direction was never meant to become decoration. It was meant to remain close to the person who needed it. The museum will eventually reopen the exhibition under a different name, Hidden Hands. It will examine how famous creative institutions sometimes erase assistants, students, craftspeople, and family traditions while presenting one person as the sole genius. Your work will appear only if you agree. Amara's shop may be discussed only through details you approve. No one will display private customer stories without consent. The silver and blue coat will remain inside secure storage until you make the decision. Perhaps you will allow it to stand beneath your name. Perhaps you will take it home and place it inside the wooden cabinet where Amara kept unfinished work. Perhaps you will remove every alteration Helena added and wear it yourself. Perhaps you will create something completely new. You owe the public no performance of recovery. Your art existed before the accusation. It exists inside every costume you repaired quietly, every performer you protected from entering the stage afraid, and every hidden compass you continued sewing after the world told you the symbol was never yours. Comment: no one can steal the story inside me, if you believe your identity cannot be defined by powerful people, false records, or public opinion. Like this video if you believe genuine love should recognize a person's character before the world confirms it, and subscribe for more emotional stories about hidden truth, creative ownership, accountability, and self-respect. Your soulmate had something to say about your style. They once questioned whether it truly belonged to you. Yesterday, they discovered that the coat praised as Helena's masterpiece was created by your hands. The archive dates were false. Your sketches were relabeled. Amara's pattern pages were hidden. Your professional identity was stolen while you were accused of stealing someone else's. The truth is finally visible. Your name is being restored. Your work is returning. But whether your soulmate is ever allowed to stand beside the person behind that style again will not be decided by the museum, the institute, the exhibition, or the people who finally believe you. That choice belongs where the compass always pointed, back to you.